Hello and welcome to another episode of Have a Cup of Joe with Old St. Joe. I'm your host, Professor Toby Lawrence from School of Missouri Western State University. Today we are here with Jenna Sanders. She's with St. Joseph Public Library. I'm going to give a quick plug though before we get started. If you can make it, we've got our 9th annual Griffin Film Festival. It's going to be held at the Trail Theater right around the corner. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's next Friday and Saturday. Friday night is the senior showcase, and Saturday is going to be the student showcase. That's going to be a lot of fun. It's free. Doors open at 6. Show starts at 7. Should wrap about 9 o'clock. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Jenna so she can tell us a little bit about herself and what she does and what we're talking about today.
All right. I am Jenna Sanders. I am the Archivist and Local History Librarian for St. Joseph Public Library. I am at the downtown branch, 927 Felix Street. It is our oldest building, and I'll talk a little bit about that too, but you'll find me in the archives or in the reference department. The reference department is where we house all of our local history and genealogy materials. However, we do have some materials down in our archives. Our archives were established about a year ago. We were able to purchase the building from the St. Joseph School District when they moved out to Noyes. They let us buy it for $1. And so when we purchased it, we had a lot more room after that. And we had this amazing collection of materials that dated back to before the founding of the town even. And so we realized, we need a dedicated space for these. And so we were fortunate enough to have a few rooms in the ground floor, and so we dedicated that to the archival materials, which is really nice because then I can monitor the humidity and the temperature and all the things that can cause books to decay faster.
Is it just books down there, or is there other things too? Do you have other items?
Well, we have a few. We don't have as many items because, that's more like museum focused, but we did have some items that were donated before there was a museum. Mainly, we have a lot of maps and books and different papers, and I'll talk about that more in a little bit
wonderful.
too. I'll give you some examples, but to start off with, like I said, we're at the downtown branch. And so that's where we keep all of our local history, all the old stuff, all the old books. And it was built in 1900, or rather the construction began in 1900. And that year into 1901, there was a steel shortage. Oh. So the building actually didn't open until 1902. But if you go into the lobby, you'll see the steel on the floor says 1900. Well, that's when the ground was broken, but we didn't open until March of 1902. But before that, St. Joe really didn't have a public library. We had several, ladies groups that would get together, and they would have to do it subscription based because, they couldn't support it on their own. And so the St. Joseph Public Library as an institution was founded in 1890. We were originally at the it's the Elks Lodge, I think is what people mostly know it for, at 10th and Sylvania. It was originally owned by the Burns family. Oh, okay. And so we moved in there, and going through letters from the head librarian at the time, it was apparent that the atmosphere was not idyllic for reading. They said it was kind of musty and dark and not really conducive to the library atmosphere that you want. And so we chose not to rent it again. And that was kind of the same time that a bond became available that if it passed, it would allow the city to build a building that would house not only the library, but the St. Joseph School District.
Right.
And so we ended up just, being located like a block or two down from the original spot. And like I said, the construction started in 1900. All the materials in it were locally sourced as possible. Like all the limestone for the building comes from Kansas, and the terrazzo floor, I'm kind of a nerd about this stuff, so it might be boring, but the terrazzo floor, normally you'll see iron rails to kind of keep in the pattern and the colors and the different stones because it's little pieces of marble that are kind of burnished into cement. And so what's unique about our floor is it has no iron rails to keep it. So if you look at it, it's just kind of free-formed, and that was all done by hand. And, this is still a time where they didn't have readily available electricity. Sure. So they were doing all of this by hand. Oh my gosh. And so in 2003, we actually ended up restoring the building. We actually had to move out of the building for a while to do this, but at that point, the floor was covered up with carpet. They glued carpet down. Um, modernization is what it was, sold as. But they took up the carpet and refinished the floors, and the company that did it for us actually won an award just for their restoration work. Sorry, I have to touch my nose a couple times. I don't want to bore you with all like architecture, but it was the building was constructed or designed by Edmund Eckel, and you'll see a lot of his buildings around town. City Hall, the Livestock Exchange Building, rest in peace.
Right.
But it's a wonderful example of his Beaux-Arts style. And when you go up to the second floor, which is where the school district was, you have a beautiful rotunda, and we love that. And in that rotunda, you normally have an opening. The school district decided that the library was too noisy. So in 1905, they commissioned a stained glass window, or stained glass, to be put in the rotunda. And so that was actually designed and constructed by a local artist named Paul Wolf. Okay. Sorry, I have like a normal spiel that I go through, like I'm giving a tour.
That's okay. And you can give cues too, so
Okay.
they can switch slides.
Sorry.
You're all right.
So originally the building was kind of in a way constructed more for people using it as a study space, as a reading space. And so it looks very different now. You'll be able to see on the slide what it originally looked like. If you come into the library...
Is that the one?
No, next one. Sorry, I'm not sure how to give you the best cues. You can go next one. That one.
Okay, cool.
Sorry.
There we go. We're good. You can do rhythm.
Okay. What works best for you?
If you just go like...
I can do that.
Just kind of point at the
I can
screen.
do that. So, we still have radiators, gas lamps, but this space is now under a balcony. The original balcony only went out so far, and they constantly needed space for more books. And so in 1915, additional balcony was constructed, and we have always had the glass floor. So if you go in on the second floor of the stacks room where you get your library books, that has always been glass. Now, was it always safe? No. That was part of the restoration. Before that, you would have to, it's kind of like a very traditional library, you would have to submit, the books you needed to the librarian, and they would go up there and walk on the 2x4s across the floor and get it for you. And so now it's perfectly safe. It's still glass, but it's very safe. If you go to the next slide, you can see in the ceiling there are skylights. Now, I always thought that they were skylights, but I hadn't really seen anything that proved that until we got to the next one, which is the Edmund Eckel drawing of the exterior of the building. And so up in the top there, you can see where it says skylight. So unfortunately, those were covered up, so now it's just kind of a coffered ceiling. I imagine they were maybe, a little leaky, and that's not great for books.
Sure. Yeah.
And so on the next one, that is now what was now the director's room. That was originally used for the library board, but the St. Joseph Junior College used to be downtown. And when it was, they would allow the students to come in there and use it for study hall.
And wait, I think when it was downtown, it was at 4th and whatever.
Mm-hmm. It was right up the street, yeah.
I lived there. I'm like, I wonder what room I was in. Like, was this the...
I know.
They taught English in here? What was going on in this room?
So we really kind of kept it, like, all on the same street.
Do you guys even know that? Just personal curiosity, like that building, do you guys know what was where in the building?
No, I don't, unfortunately. I'm sure if I looked hard enough, I could probably find something.
Yeah.
But no, not off the top of my head. That would be really cool to know.
That's so wild.
And on the next one, so that is where we kind of turned that into a community room. But this was the original reading room, and it became so busy and so popular that they actually had to build on an annex in 1918, and that is what became our reference department.
So this slide here is from right around 1918?
Probably before, around. I think these photos were taken kind of right when it opened. They're in our annual reports, which are online. But they kind of went through kind of showing it off.
Do we have electricity here or no?
So they did build it with electric, but they didn't really use it. I imagine it was much more expensive. So they did use gas lamps. one of the funny things is the school district and the school district board and the library board were kind of at odds sometimes about utilities. And so it was so popular that they were paying the utilities, and so they asked the library board, hey, can you just close down this room permanently and not use it so we don't have to pay so much? And the library board very kindly said absolutely not. And so they ended up compromising and changing some hours, but the library's purpose and mission has always been as much access as possible.
Right.
And so we always fought for that. But yeah, you still have gas lamps in there is what you're seeing.
Wow.
And then the next one even, that is now a programming room. It used to hold our government document collection. We've been a government repository since 1890. It now houses, like I said, programming space, but at this time it was the children's library. It wasn't downstairs yet. And that is because...
So does this, this room here, does this hold then, I know you said it was 1890, you had this stuff since 1890. Are there any documents from before that?
Yeah, so, one of the issues with preserving paper is terribly acidic, so it likes to, just disintegrate. But yeah, so some of the items that we have, I'll kind of fast forward here. We have some original landies between, like Joseph Roubidoux and John Patey. And some of those are, done on a thicker kind of vellum paper. So those can withstand a lot and are still in really, really good shape.
So what's the rules, like light, oxygen, and moisture? Yeah,
so paper is very particular. Yeah, you can go on and past the floor plans if you want. So yeah, paper needs a minimum amount of humidity and temperature. My ideal is about 30-35%.
Okay.
And so we have humidifiers going to control the moisture, and then I like to keep it about as close to 60 degrees as possible. It's very cold, and so you layer up when you're working in there, but it's really good for the books. And yes, light will accelerate the damage, the degradation process of the paper. So we try to black out all the windows.
Right. With some of that though, have you been able to like put it under glass and then suck all the air out, or how does that preservation process work?
So I'll actually touch on this because I kind of find it fascinating.
Yeah, definitely.
But so in the 70s and 80s, lamination became kind of this new exciting thing, and historical societies and some libraries and archives bought into it. And they thought, this is great, we'll preserve these, nothing can get at them. And what they didn't realize they were doing is they were heat sealing it. And so when extreme heat is applied to paper, again, it speeds up the decay process. But when you have it enclosed like that, paper has to breathe. And so it is acidic, and so when something is laminated, it essentially kind of eats itself and turns into vinegar. So there are whole historical societies around the country that pretty much their entire collection was laminated. And so they're dealing with that. Thankfully, we don't really have any of that. Our librarians were very good stewards in the past. I'm very thankful for that. They did a spectacular job of taking care of the collection.
We have similar issues like with old film, with vinegar. Like if you get an old can of film and you open it up and you
vinegar syndrome.
Vinegar syndrome. It smells like it. You know that it's probably either it's shrunk. If you try to run it through the camera, it's not lubricated anymore, and you're gonna shred it. And then if you go back even further, I know that you guys didn't have to deal with this with books and stuff, but film with nitrate, nitrate film exploding and burning, and I wonder did you guys ever have any of that kind of film even held in the library?
Not nitrate, thankfully, at least not anymore, so that's good. Because explosions and paper don't go well together.
Yeah, right.
But we do have microfilm. We have the newspapers on microfilm. And we have the two main ones. There were several other newspapers that, kind of appeared and disappeared just as quickly throughout St. Joseph's history. But the longest running one was the Gazette, and then we had the news press a little bit later. So we have the furthest back, the original edition of the St. Joseph Gazette, which was printed by William Reidenbaugh at the time, 1845. And so we have the entire collection on microfilm. We used to actually have a physical room that we kept all the newspapers, but newspaper, worse than, just actual paper that books are printed on, is even it's not made to withstand more than like a month or two. And so we have a lot of microfilm. And we have replaced it in recent years, and we continue to do that just because, we have a vast collection and a limited budget, and so we replace what we can. For the most part, we've replaced all of the ones that had vinegar syndrome. But that is something that we had to deal with.
It seems like the state would want to give you guys more funding. I mean, you've got these precious works that need to be preserved and saved for future generations. I mean, that's what you guys are trying to do desperately to get this done. It seems like they should.
I agree.
More funding.
I agree. We actually had Governor Mike Parson at the library for his book signing. So hopefully he, looked around and saw that we also need more funding. So
I hope so too.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
So we keep the microfilm in our reference department. We have masters down in the archives where it's colder. But the newspapers on microfilm are primarily kept up in the reference room, and we have microfilm readers. We have a lot of people come in like, what are those computers? Because they're very bulky, very old looking, and so you can still get on.
Is that top picture there?
No, so that actually, if you go, I'm not sure what slide you're on. Go to the next one. Okay, so that's actually our archives room.
Oh, wow.
When we started, it was just kind of cabinets and, none of that in there. And so we moved a bulk of the collection in there. And so now it's very nice and tidy.
This is one of the rooms that your humidity and temperature control,
yes.
All that.
Yes.
That's a constant struggle, too.
It is, especially in an old building. We do pretty well for as old as the building is. But it's still a constant struggle. And one of the really cool things, if you go to the next one, so the library was built with 3 vaults. And so that vault is my favorite, not just because it's an archives, but it's the only one
you know the combo?
Well, they took it out so I wouldn't lock myself in there, thankfully.
That's good. Okay. Fair enough.
They were thinking of me.
Yeah.
But that vault is the only one that has the original artwork still on it, and the writing and everything. And so that's...
It just took you can see too, where they've just taken such meticulous care.
That was hand painted.
Yeah. It's just amazing. So they took the lock off so Jenna doesn't get locked
Yeah.
inside. So what's behind the door? What's in there?
Well, next one. So it looks, this is kind of where I was at the beginning of organizing our vault. So that's where the really, really delicate, irreplaceable things are kept. And it's even more temperature controlled because it's kind of like a little cave. And, they store film and cheese sometimes in caves and like cans.
Yeah, sure, right.
So that's even,
Morels growing in the corners.
Yeah, no. There's not as much moisture in there, so we don't have mushrooms. But that is even more stable, the environment is. And so in there is where we start to really get to my favorite things in the collection. When the town was founded in 1843, Joseph Robidoux commissioned a couple guys to do a plat. Yep. You probably heard that story a million times.
Yep.
But one of them, and the one he went with, was Frederick Smith. And so the book here, there we go. Yeah. So on that is not mold. That is what is called foxing. There's a little old water damage, but it's not mold. So foxing is kind of a naturally occurring thing. Like I said, because the paper is so acidic, that'll just kind of happen. And you can do your best to slow it down. But also the inks, not only was the paper very acidic, but the inks back then were very acidic. So that's why his name is kind of blurry looking. It was
like an Indian ink work, kind of like even like
old
tattoo.
Yeah, iron gall is what they used, and so it was. They realized much later on that it is not, it was not created to withstand time. But anyway, he signed that. That was a surveying book that he had, and he signed it. And I think there's a couple of notes in there, but that's one of my favorite things.
Wow.
If you go to the next one. So this is a letter and deposition from a gentleman that was present when M. Jeff Thompson scurried up to the top of the post office and tore down the Union flag.
Oh wow.
Have you heard that story?
I've heard some of it, but I'm not sure. I'm never really clear on what is this true or is that true? What happened?
Yeah, so he had been rabble rousing a little bit that night, stayed up all night, got mad at the flag, and then, like I said, scurried up to the top of the building, tore it down. And so after that, a little tension ensued because at that time, the city council had already stated that there shall not be any flags flown in St. Joe, just to kind of keep the peace. Well, the postmaster was very staunchly Union, and so he was going to fly a Union flag anyway. And there were other flags flying in town.
Sure.
But that became a really tense moment because, you had this crowd start gathering as this drunken former mayor, is tearing down the Union flag. And the next one they were going to go after was the Turner Hall flag. Turner Hall was also known as the Turnverein. We had a large German population. That was essentially their community center.
Absolutely.
And most of the Germans at that time, especially in St. Joseph, were very staunchly Union. And they loved the country, they loved the Union.
Right.
And they would enlist on the Union side, so you had whole regiments that were just German. But a young man realized that was where they were going next. And so he raced to that building, locked himself in, got on top of the roof. And there was an attorney at the time, and he plays a large role in St. Joseph's Civil War history, actually, later on. But the young man, they wanted him to take down the flag, and he wouldn't do it. And so you start hearing all these pistols cocking.
Oh, my God.
And so this attorney, Alonzo Slayback, steps forward, and he says, if any of you draw on him, I will shoot you all down. And so he saluted the flag finally and took it down, and there were no shots fired, thankfully. But that's his deposition, John Bittinger, his deposition that he witnessed it. It was written a little bit later, but Perd Wright, the original head librarian of the building where it is now, he had written Bittinger and asked him to send this story to him because that's how we did reference questions in the past. It wasn't just we didn't Google things yet.
Right.
We had to. There's multiple instances of our librarians contacting people that we knew would have the answer to stuff, and so very slow return on your reference question. If you go to the next one, so this is a really neat piece. I didn't even know we had this. This wasn't on our inventory. This was kind of tucked in with some other stuff. That is a map of the Pony Express Trail. And one of the interesting things about it is it's on blueprint paper. I hate blueprint paper.
So they had it back then? Just blueprint?
Yeah, and I think it might be a little different, but it's thick, and it's obviously it is that cyanotype kind of blue paper, but it degrades so easily and it gets washed out so easily, so it can't do light at all, and so caring for that takes special enclosures because you can't have any kind of lithium because that'll eat away at it too. But yeah, I didn't know we had this, and so finding this was really cool, and it's very large. I mean, it's a couple of feet.
How do you enclose it or?
So right here, I'm flattening it out because
those
again,
little sandbags on the outside.
those are weights. I'm flattening it out because if you roll stuff up, you might not be able to unroll it one day.
Yeah, right.
And so then I got a folder that was big enough to put it, and we have flat file cases, and that's where we store maps and newspapers, so we can keep them flat, so we can preserve their integrity. But we have a lot of original newspapers from St. Joseph's history as well, and we put those in what are called polyester sleeves, and that allows them to breathe, but also keeps them safe.
Right. So obviously, if you were going to handle this thing, you're moving the weights or sandbags around. Mm-hmm. You're wearing gloves as well too.
Actually, no. So
really?
that is a very big misconception in the archival world. So that was mostly done for show because people tend to get upset about things, and handling paper with bare hands when the general public sees it, that's one thing they get upset about. But no, actually, the best thing you can do with fragile paper documents like this is clean hands, freshly washed hands.
Okay.
Because you can't, through gloves, even latex gloves, you can't feel how much tension you're putting on the paper.
Oh.
And so it's much easier to damage it.
Right.
And so that's why, you'll actually see, like, some archivists, state historical societies, they'll put on the gloves for the camera.
Right.
But really, if you're working with it, you need to have bare hands so you can just feel.
It's funny because we have to, I tell the students, like, if we change bulbs on the bigger lights, like the HMIs, something like that, these bulbs are $5,000-$6,000 a piece. We have to wear gloves to change those bulbs because the oils in our hands will go in and actually break the bulbs down.
Yeah.
So it's like, I've always thought or wondered, like, I wonder if they have to wear gloves when they're like going through that stuff. But
Yeah, sometimes I will, like, if something's very dirty but it's stable. But that one thing that you always must wear gloves with is photograph film.
Okay.
And stuff like that, and actual photographs, especially like daguerreotypes, tintypes, because a single like
That's
touch on a daguerreotype will, you'll see the smudge and where it's taken off some of the print. But yeah, so I do like to handle like the photographs with gloves and negatives.
I've got a daguerreotype I've kept. I did a Western a long time ago.
Oh, cool. Make sure you wear your gloves.
Yeah, no. It's in a little glass, a little frame, and I don't touch it. And if I ever did, same thing with gloves. I was like, I know we're not supposed to. That's crazy. Yeah. That's wild. So you guys you have some of that down there, daguerreotypes?
Yeah, we do. Gosh, we don't have a big photo collection, unfortunately. But we're kind of starting to build it. We've gotten some really good donations. I'll actually talk about one here in a minute. But that's something that I'm really working on putting together is a photo archive for the library.
That's because it seems like nowadays, everybody's so visual. They want to see it. Show me. And so it's like having something like that where you can either, have an exhibition or where people come through, whatever the space, however you build it out. Yeah. That the visual cues to like pull them in further to go, my God, this is really amazing. What else you got? And then you go, there's these books.
I love doing that. I love showing it off.
Totally.
Actually, another one of my favorite things, I'll talk about a few of my favorite things, and the Columbian Exposition in 1893. So that each state had a building during the 1893 Columbian Exposition, the World's Fair. And that was the Missouri building, and in each building, every major city had a room. And so within those rooms, you had guest books. And so everyone that passed through there would sign a guest book. And so we have the 2 volumes that were in that room during the World's Fair. And so you'll see some familiar signatures from St. Joseph, but you'll see a lot of other people from just all over. And we have a lot more, we have some other items from that. We have some prints and books and just really neat stuff on that. I think that's all I wanted to say on that one. So I'm a nerd for the next one. Okay. So I love ledgers. I love handwritten things. Marina, our genealogy librarian, who's actually transcribing these ledgers from the beginning. Not so much. She's worked with a lot of terrible handwriting. She is awesome for doing that. But so this is the death ledger. One of 2, of a 2-volume set. And so in Missouri, before 1910, death records were not required. And so you see some in larger cities, city physicians would keep their own records. Now, did this catch everybody? No, especially not, countywide. But they did their best, and so there's a lot of fascinating information in there. It told the physician, obviously cause of death, marital status, where they lived, where they died. So there's a lot of good information in there. And so when we have an index at the library and we started comparing the index, which was taken from kind of another card index that the city had done. So we're looking through all of these and realizing that when the city did it, they didn't get all the names for some reason. And so, like I said, our genealogy librarian, who's amazing, Marina, she is going through and painstakingly re-indexing all of this information by hand.
Oh my gosh. We're hoping to have her on as a guest at some point.
She is amazing, and she can talk about, which city physicians she liked and didn't like because of their handwriting.
So with the ledger, were you, is the public, like, let's say someone from here is like, hey, I'm researching my family's history. How would somebody from the public access or be able to see, they're looking, I know that my great-grandma, she died somewhere around 1903. How do they... Or is there a way?
That's part of our indexing process. We're also making a database as we go.
Oh, okay.
And so all of that information is actually available now on our website. And she's still kind of working on this because there were several years. It's 1891 to 1910 essentially. But yeah, we're making all of that information verbatim available on our website.
Wow.
And we use Notion for the databases because those allow for a lot of flexibility and us to
What's Notion?
So I actually heard about it on a D&D podcast.
Okay.
But this guy was using it to track, all of his DM stuff. But Notion is a kind of a database that lets you make databases within it. I highly recommend it if you're doing any kind of like academic work, organization. Like it's great for recipes.
Can you put in like audio or video files as well?
You can.
Or, like search to find.
So I do think it does. I do think it will search for some of that stuff. I'm not sure how advanced it is in terms of audio files, but there's a limit on like the free account for
Right.
space for a file. But it's been really fantastic to be able to use that and make that publicly available because you can search it and search for different things. Because we tried to figure out, how do we put a spreadsheet on our website and make it
Right.
not a headache for people to use. And this has allowed us to do it. So I highly recommend Notion for different things.
We're going to note that down.
Yeah.
We're going to look it up. See if it can help us.
The next one is a really awesome piece that we just received last year. There was a young man who his uncle had left him some things, and within it was this map. So you'll see it says St. George. St. George was actually Southside St. Joseph before it was annexed.
Oh,
So
wow.
this map is circa probably about 1899-ish. And I've never really seen a map of what was, St. George
Right.
on its own before. And so he donated this to us. And it was just such a cool piece. And it was,
Wow.
it was folded, and so we flattened it. But other than that, it was in great,
Yeah, even from here, I can see how much
yeah,
that's amazing.
it was in great condition. And so we've got that. We've digitized that. And I'm not sure, it might be in the queue to put up on our digital archives.
I lived down there when I first moved to St. Joe's on Walter Lane, right off of King Hill or whatever, the main drag.
Yeah.
Walter Lane was down there. So that's interesting down there.
Yeah, so Southside and Northside have their own individual histories that are just really fascinating
Oh, yeah.
on their own. Just a couple more pieces. So we have Eugene Field collection. We have various local author collections. The Owen Sisters is another one. But we also have yearbooks. So we have like the really, really, really old yearbooks. And actually Central High School went through and digitized their yearbooks to be put on Family Search, which is a genealogy kind of database. And so in the process, I worked with them to do this because there were certain years they were missing. And we found that 1897 and 1903 just don't exist. And I went through the newspapers and tried to track it. Because it was a guy I was looking for that graduated in 1897. And I was like, why am I not finding this? So kind of if you track it in the papers, they just didn't do one. They had an intention of doing one. They just never did.
Wow, that's crazy.
But we're able to digitize all of this on a really cool kind of overhead book scanner that we got. It's very fancy. It's my baby. So it allows us to safely and efficiently digitize oversized materials, small materials, documents, letters. It actually pops up into a cradle if you have a book that you can't open all the way. So we've been able to expand our digital archives quite a bit.
I mean, I guess that's good too. Obviously the benefit of this. I'm personally going through a crazy archival process with all my old film.
Yeah.
Trying to move it over to a usable,
Mm-hmm.
I've got 16 millimeter, 8 millimeter Super 8 film stuff that I've shot, or family stuff that I'm trying to move over now, so where I can keep it on SSD drives. So it's very interesting to think about this in the archival process, having this scanner, at least having that moment of I bet how you feel is oh, we got it.
Yep.
Because if someone's going to degrade it, you're going to lose it. It's oh my gosh, at least there's some form of it. We have it. That's got to feel rewarding.
Because kind of prior to this, they were so astronomically expensive that for little public libraries, it was just kind of out of the question. But the state has some really good grant programs, and I wrote a grant for that scanner, and I was thrilled when we got it because it has allowed us to make our collection more accessible, because that's our goal is for free and open access to especially St. Joseph's history. And some of the things that we've digitized, just early stuff from, this is kind of the commercial business era of St. Joseph. So there's what you'll see when you go to our digital archives, just kind of a list, and you can go in and open up a PDF. Sometimes they're bigger and they take a little bit to load, but
Sure.
But for the most part, that's kind of the best way we've been able to do it. So we have a lot of stuff like this. St. Joe was very good at tracking its old white men back in the day.
They're good at that.
Yeah. And
Oh
so
my
like,
gosh.
but they're all like, you see images of buildings that were torn down, sadly. On the very right side, if you go back on the very right side, kind of in the middle, the C.E. Rush, he was one of the librarians for St. Joseph Public Library. He was kind of during when was it? I think it was after World War I. And so he was fussing with the Carnegie Foundation because we have 2 Carnegie libraries. He wanted to build a new building to replace the one we had because he said there just wasn't enough space. And he kind of that didn't work out, and so he kind of got upset, so he left. The next one is a really cool item. So these are just a few photos out of it. So this is called St. Joseph of the Future. It was a study essentially done, commissioned by the precursor to the Chamber of Commerce, the Ad Club. It's in 1910, and they brought in a guy named Charles Mulford Robinson. Say that 3 times fast. But he was the one that kind of invented the City Beautiful movement. So you see like a lot of the big city parks, Central Park, stuff like that. Yeah. He's the one that did those, and is kind of leading up to the creation of our parkway system, like the precursor to that. But he went through and meticulously documented like every aspect of St. Joe, and you'll see his comments there. My favorite one is the top left there, the trees. His little comment is, was this man growing hat trees? Because they've lobbed all the tops of them off. Oh, no. But he commented on the one at the bottom, like, this is a waste of sidewalk space, and the top right, you need to clean the city up, because St. Joe has always maybe had a little bit of a litter problem. We're trying, but, it is what it is.
Well, we keep trying.
And so the next one, these are the J.B. Moss collection. I'm going to get it wrong. His descendant, a very nice lady, had all of these digitized, the family photo albums digitized, and she sent a copy to us, to St. Joseph Museums and the St. Joseph Historical Society. I'm not sure if she sent others, but she's a very lovely person. And so I asked her, can we put these up on our digital archives? And she was absolutely thrilled that we wanted to do that. Again, we still have a queue of things we're like trying to get up there. Right, yeah. And this is a massive collection, so we've been working through that. But
so where's the original then? Does she still have it?
She still has it, yeah.
Has she been advised or like keep it in this kind of environment?
Yeah, she worked with, I think, an archivist to do all of this. And so she did it the right way, so that was very exciting too, to talk to her about that process. But the photos on the left, in the middle, in the bottom one, you'll see Thomas Edison. So this was this was also included the James family, which a woman named Mary Tootle James married into the James family, and so that's all of them, and so they hung out with Thomas Edison, no big deal.
Hanging out.
Yeah, but this is a place called Sanibel Island, and so they all had these little cottages that they would go to, and sounds amazing, but.
And that was here in St. Joe?
No, so the families were here in St. Joe. But yeah, this was Sanibel Island. There's a story, because the Lacey family is also included in this. Like there's a awesome way to like track all the big families. They're all connected to each other, and it's kind of fun stories. But one of the little Lacey girls, she was having a birthday party on Sanibel Island during the summer. Well, Sanibel Island had a flood, and they decided that they needed to move their cemetery. And so during this little girl's birthday party, you have them moving people to new homes across the lawn in the background, and so she did not have the best birthday party. But stories like these that just really make photos like this like connects you to them, and realize that they were people. Mary Tootle James actually is one of my favorite St. Joseph people. She was instrumental in the suffrage movement here. And she's the reason why we have legal women voters, which I'm vice president of. So,
There you go.
yeah, and anyone is invited to come to Legal Women Voters. It's just about voting rights. I'm going to do a shameless plug there.
That's right. You can do that.
But so those are just a few of the things that we have in our digital archives and our physical archives. We have vast amounts of just amazing material, and so we're doing our best to preserve those for future generations.
It's amazing. Just trying to think, it's just like so much to even think about. So where would someone start then, going into coming in? Like, hey, I'm looking. Like I'll just use my own example. I got my house. It's from 1903. It's in a particular area. I come in. What should I even ask? I don't even know what to ask. That's what I've been thinking.
All you say is you're researching your home,
Okay.
and we get really excited, and we throw a lot of like materials at you, not literally,
Okay.
but we
All
give
right.
we inundate you with material. We actually have some brochures about how just how to research your house. Marina's updated those; those are really great, and she's even done one on how to research your haunted house.
Which people think mine is because I've got graveyards on either side.
Oh, that is cool.
I'm literally like 100 feet from the county line, so
That's cool.
I'm one of the last houses in this particular area that was like a community of sorts.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. So we're kind of the spooky department at the library. We call
Yeah.
ourselves Spooky Girls. We have a giant cardboard cutout of Frankenstein's monster
Okay.
year round. We put like little hats on him for different seasons. We have bats hanging from some of the paintings. But yeah, so we are also passionate about if you are researching your haunted house as well. But we'll get you started with the materials we have. We have city directories dating back to 1859. We have Sanborn maps, which are really cool. They were fire insurance maps, and it was done by this company that would literally go around and make,
I've heard of those.
print out the footprint of each house. And the original ones are color coded, so you'd know if it was brick, cement, limestone, sandstone, whatever. So those are a really great resource, and we actually have a database that's available on our website with a company that has digitized all of those.
So would mine be on that then, if it was 1903?
Yeah, depending on the lines of the city, because there's some that they just didn't include.
Right.
Like there was one, I think it was north of 7th Street in another city that I was looking for, and it's just they just cut it off. I don't
Because
know.
I think I've realized after moving into the house that I guess at a period of time they didn't even have like where they would put concrete down. They would just put gravel and then they'd put the brick on top of the gravel and just build.
Yeah.
So like it's funny if I go like down in the basement, I'm like I can see the edge where here's the brick and then here's where they later laid foundation, and it's like, oh wow.
Yeah, a lot
That's
of
wild.
homes, older homes in St. Joseph also have sub basements, and that was just kind of like they needed more storage space, so they just kept digging out basements under their house. So
oh my gosh.
like there's some people that have gone in there and bought a house and like realized that like that had a sub basement was filled in for whatever reason.
Right.
Um,
But for safety.
yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, we have all sorts of newspaper articles, genealogy books, local history books. There's some great Buchanan County histories. They're all older though, but they have a lot of good information. But yeah, you just come in, let us know what you're looking for, and we are happy to get you started.
Okay. Well, exciting. Well, obviously, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This is great.
This is, so much to think about here, and hopefully everybody at home, if you're watching this video later when we post it to Facebook and YouTube, you'll come on down to the library and check things out with Jenna and the crew. Any other plugs?
We have a lot of great programming. Check our website. We also do a newsletter, which is also digitally available online. We have a true crime time. That's one of my favorites. Our manager does that. We have a lot of great DIY programs, just all sorts of stuff. We have cooking. We have like life skills. We have one of our amazing staff members has been doing like embroidery and stuff like that, which is so daunting to me, but no, we have a lot of great programs, so be watching for that. And we're heading into the summer reading season, so we'll have a lot of great performers for kiddos, and we do our summer reading program where you can get prizes if you read a lot. And so yeah, just keep an eye on our website.
Awesome.
We also have a Facebook page that's updated regularly.
Well, on that, we're about to wrap, but I also wanted to give a shout out again. Thanks to Mokaska and the crew here, Andy Monty, for having us. And like I said, we're also going to be at the Trail Theater for the Griffin Film Festival coming up next week, next Friday and Saturday. Doors at 6, show at 7 o'clock. Hope you can make it out. I guess with that, thanks a lot. Have a great St. Joe Day.